Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS College Football Week 1. It's Monday night. We got a Monday night game. As far as the last 2 days, man, out of nowhere, I was having such an awesome week. I was killing MLB. I had only lost one college football bet the entire season. And then college football Saturday was rough. And then LSU. I also lost a couple baseball bets today, Sunday as well. So out of nowhere, just a rough 48 hours for me. That needs to stop. But yeah, we got Boston College, Florida State, Monday Night Football. Let's go.
Welcome to the SWUS. The SWUS. SWUS. Hey, get the SWUS.
All right, so let's start off with some head-to-head history here. Been a pretty one-sided rivalry. Florida State's taken 9 of their last 10 games against Boston College. That's dating back to 2013. They're also 6-4 against the spread in those 10 games. 6-2 against the spread in their last 8. And specifically in Tallahassee, Florida State 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread in their last 3. You got to go all the way back to 2014 to find the last time Boston College even covered the number here in Tallahassee. Now, obviously, we have to mention what happened last week over in Ireland. Georgia Tech got the win, 24-21. I did have Georgia Tech plus the points, and I did think there was a realistic chance that they could win. Didn't think they actually would. Was a great game, though. Great way to start the college football season. To me, the biggest takeaway for Florida State from that game is their lack of push as far as the offensive line goes. 2.25 average line yards in the game. That's 14th in the ACC this week. Only Stanford and Duke were worse in this department as far as creating space in the run game. So Florida State's offensive line was getting bullied by Georgia Tech's defensive front. And it's crazy. If you watch last week's video, yeah, I took Georgia Tech, but I was talking about all the offensive weapons that were gone. The receivers, Trey Benson, Jordan Travis. That's what I was worried about. I thought Florida State's offensive line would be okay. I mean, they brought 3 starters back. I thought Georgia Tech's defensive front would be improved. I was not expecting that. So now enter Boston College, another team with a less than stellar defensive front. Actually decent defensive line metrics against the run last year, pretty middle of the pack, slightly below average, I'd say. But just like Georgia Tech, they bring a ton of production back. Of their defensive front 7, 6 of the starters return. So a ton of production from Boston College back on that defensive front, which you probably hate to hear if you're a Florida State fan because it sounds so familiar. I mean, they just went through that last week against Georgia Tech, kind of the same situation, a bad defense bringing back a ton of production. It gets even worse for Florida State when you point out that they couldn't run the ball on this defense last year. Last year, on the road in Boston College, 34 carries, 128 rushing yards, 3.8 yards per carry. So that was last year. They couldn't run the ball in this Boston College defense. Now they're back and they bring back 6 of the 7 starters on their defensive front. And when you really take a look at Florida State's offensive game logs from last season, there weren't many successful rushing campaigns here. I mean, look at the rushing column. That's the middle of this chart here. There's not much green. I mean, yeah, they were able to run the ball in North Alabama, Virginia Tech, okay, Syracuse, Southern Mississippi. I mean, look at all the other games. 3.7, 1.8, 2.9 yards per carry, 3.7. They weren't really running the ball, and that was last year with all their weapons on offense. Honestly, I think this Florida State offense might be a bit overrated. I think the general consensus was last season that this offense was elite before Jordan Travis got hurt because they were putting up big numbers, 40 points, 37 points. If you look at the final scores, it looks like the offense was going off. But if you actually watch the games or take a closer look at the box scores, you know that Florida State's offense wasn't that fluid. In fact, there was a lot of times during the season, even before Jordan Travis got hurt, where the offense looked a little stagnant. So here they are this year. They lost their quarterback, lost all their offensive weapons, and we kind of were like, it's Florida State. They'll be fine. They were savage before Jordan Travis got hurt. And now we're kind of taking a closer look and realizing maybe this offense isn't that great. The defense is a different story. I'll co-sign the Florida State defense, but the offense, I'm not so sure about. And speaking of not so sure about, let's talk about DJU last week. Certainly didn't set the world on fire in his first game in a Florida State uniform. I mean, not that he was absolutely terrible, but if you watch the game, you know he was not getting the ball downfield at all. 19 of 27, 193 yards, 77.7 QBR. I mean, certainly wasn't spectacular. Yeah, he didn't turn the ball over a bunch of times, so you can give him a win there. But as a whole, definitely not a great performance here. But we really do need to cut him a little bit of slack. I mean, like I said, it was his first game with Florida State. It was overseas in Ireland. There was a lot of weird factors here. I'm not willing to jump to any conclusions here as far as DJU goes. In fact, I kind of like the spot for him here as we pull up Boston College defensive metrics from last season. Definitely definitely not good. I mean, 104th in yards per play allowed, 81st in success rate. Not great against the run, not great against the pass either. Now, as far as the roster goes, they should be improved. I mean, like I already mentioned, they brought back 6 of the 7 starters in the defensive front. They also brought back a couple starters in the secondary. They lost their best corner, I think it is. I think they lost their best corner, but they brought in a couple transfers. So as far as the roster on paper, they should be better on the defensive side of the ball. But unlike Georgia Tech, if you remember, they brought in Santucci to coach the defense. He comes from Duke, established defensive coordinator that just showed us he could be a part of building a really good run defense at Duke. I like that hire. Now, I'm not going to say I don't like this hire, but I will say I really don't know much about Tim Lewis. In case you haven't heard, Boston College brought in Bill O'Brien to coach the team. He brings Will Lawing in to be the OC, and that's kind of his offensive assistant. He's been with him for a while. Tim Lewis comes in to coach the defense, and look at his coaching history. 49ers defensive backs coach back in 2015. We're talking like 9-10 years ago. Since then, Pinecrest Academy, Birmingham Iron, it's XFL, USFL teams. This dude hasn't had a significant coaching job in the FBS or the NFL in a long time. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not trying to badmouth the guy. I'm just saying I don't know how I'm supposed to make a prediction. I don't know how to find data on this guy. Should I go look at USFL metrics? I really don't know what to do here, which makes this game extremely difficult to bet. Because if you remember last week, I said I thought Georgia Tech's defensive front could do a decent job against this brand new Florida State offense. But they're not really brand new anymore. They got a week under their belt now. And also, Georgia Tech brought the head coach back, the same OC back, and the DC was established in the same conference. This is a little bit of a different situation here. It's a complete overhaul as far as coaching staff. I don't like it nearly as much. Now, on the other side of the ball, we got the Boston College offense against the Florida State defense, and we have to mention that Georgia Tech looked smooth last week offensively. It wasn't huge play after huge play, but they were executing, man. 9.1 yards per pass attempt, 5.3 yards per rush attempt. Definitely impressive. Like I said, they weren't gashing Florida State 15 yards, 20 yards, but they were executing. The success rate was high. They were able to consistently move the chains offensively. Now, as we know, Florida State last year, one of, if not the best defense in the country. Here are the metrics. I'm sure you already know this. They were absolutely elite, lost a ton of production this season, and Georgia Tech brought a really experienced unit and caught them napping overseas in week 0. Here's the thing. Boston College has a lot of similarities to Georgia Tech in a sense that they're a run-first offense all the way. By far, the rushing metrics are the strength of this team. 31st in yards per carry, 39th in success rate. They also bring back a ton of production. 27th in returning production, 9 starters returned on the offensive side. Offensive line was great last year. Look at these metrics from Boston College's offensive line. This is a top 10 pass protecting unit, top 25, top 30 rushing unit, run blocking unit. They only bring back 3 starters on the offensive line. Georgia Tech brought back 4 and brought in a transfer. So not quite the same returning production that Georgia Tech had on the offensive line. But no question, Boston College offense is in great shape across the board. So after hearing that, you might be thinking, oh, Kyle, here we go again. It's almost the same situation. You got Florida State, a new team, against a Boston College team just like Georgia Tech, who had a pretty good offense, a run-first offense last year, brings back a ton of production, brings back their star quarterback who can also run. Ton of similarities here. Oh, I didn't bring up Castellanos. That's here last year against Florida State. 305 passing yards, 95 rushing yards. I'm sure you remember the game. Final score was 31-29. It was an awesome game. Florida State just squeaked it out. So I forgot to mention that earlier. Castellanos is back at quarterback, as I'm sure you know, and he went off in this game last year. But anyway, back to my point. So you may be hearing all this and thinking, Kyle, how do we not take the 16.5, 17 points with Boston College here? It's a very similar situation to what we just saw. Georgia Tech was clearly the right side last week. How do we not take Boston College? Well, there are 3 major differences from last week. Number 1, they're no longer in Ireland. They are home at Tallahassee. That is huge. That's number 1. Number 2, they have a game experience. If you remember, a big part of why I took Georgia Tech last week was so many new faces on the Florida State on both sides of the ball. So they have a game experience, so they're no longer brand new. Number 3, Boston College offense, although it should be good, although they bring back a ton of production, it is not Georgia Tech's offense. I think Georgia Tech has the potential to be a top 15 offense in the country. Boston College, you're looking more like top 35, top 40. Boston College is not Georgia Tech's offense. So although you're looking at that big number plus 16.5, you got Florida State's terrible performance from last week fresh in your head. DJU stocks at an all-time low. I actually like Florida State to bounce back in a big way here, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think Florida State's defense shows up in a big way, and I think the odds makers agree with me a little bit because Boston College has a superstar quarterback coming back, ton of production coming back on the offensive side of the ball. Their team total's at 15.5. So they're not expecting Boston College to score many points either. So as far as betting this game, I like Florida State's defense to bounce back. So I lean towards the Florida State side, but personally, I don't really trust the Florida State offense enough to lay 16.5. So I think the best bet here is to take the under, or maybe even go razor sharp and take the Boston College team total under 15.5. But personally, I'm just going to take the under. I see a 50 open. I'm taking it. Give me the under. If you put a gun to my head and force me to pick a side, I'd lay this 16.5 with Florida State. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets. You'll see mine as well as everyone on the staff here. Also, if you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, you can join the Discord and participate in the betting league. I got the trophies. Betting league starts this week. I don't know if you can see it. I'll put a picture of it up on the screen. $150 and a trophy to the winner every single week. Basically, you get assigned a division, and then Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, you'll make picks in your division. Whoever has the most earnings at the end of the day Sunday wins the division, and then the division winners compete in Monday Night Football to win. So that's how it's going to work. Starts this week. You need to have your picks submitted in the Discord by Thursday. All right, hopefully I can grab a win to finish this week one out. It's crazy. I was having such an awesome week, and then college football Saturday was a rough one. Then I took a couple baseball bets on Sunday that lost, and now LSU. Just a rough 48 hours out of nowhere. It was smooth sailing 2 days ago, so we need to put an end to that immediately. Hopefully we get this one. Thanks for watching. Remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.